What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. What do you do when the combine's wrapping up, the pro days are wrapping up, and you still have a month, maybe a little over a month, before the NFL draft? You start to mock draft endlessly. Tony Pauline of Sportskeeda is no different from the rest of us. He's dropping what I feel like is going to be weekly mock drafts, and his pick is one of the more intriguing ones, not because of who the player is, but because of the context, given to the pick itself. This is information that I feel like is new. It's not world changing, but it definitely lets you know where this new regime's thought process may be. The player was Tyler Warren. Again, no surprise there. We've been linked to him for what feels like over a month now, but the specific situation that he calls out here is, I loathe making this pick considering the other options available, but everything I heard points to the Jets being infatuated with Warren to the point they are trying to set up multiple meetings with the tight end. And this is music to my ears. I believe I dropped this in my 7-round mock draft video, but one of the underrated storylines is going to be, who does this regime look at as the new face of the era for them, right? It's a new regime. Generally, when you start looking at any of these head coaches or general managers that are coming in, everything gets tied around the success of the top pick that they choose to select, right? You look at Mekhi Becton, and you can go down a list of all these other guys, right? And you compare that to who was generally left, or was it a failure not trading up for certain guys, etc., etc. But Tyler Warren feels like he's been firmly entrenched in the mix here, and really the only negative that I consistently hear out of people is, you don't take a tight end in the top 10. Not to say that hasn't been proven wrong. Obviously, you can look to Brock Bowers and the historic season that he's just coming off of, but there's a lot that goes into that. Top 10 picks in general are going to walk into the NFL being one of the highest paid players at their position, deservedly so if you end up becoming that top pick. But you have to think about it from that standpoint. Obviously, you think down the line about what a secondary contract will look like for somebody like that if you made the right selection. But then also, tight end in and of itself is not looked at as a premier position, and I really think it should be. So when you look at it, again, high level wise, Tyler Warren would be a home run selection. Not only is he filling a need for the Jets, and arguably you can make the case that he bumps up on the priority list even a little bit further with Tyler Conklin being signed by the Chargers, and there not being maybe another comfortable player that they feel like, or at least another scenario where you've seen a guy in this tight end one role and what he looks like in the production that he's going to put up consistently over a couple years span, right? So with it being late in free agency, with there probably not being another significant addition until we get to the draft, and Tyler Warren comfortably having that top tight end status, as much as people love Colston, for example, I still think there's a clear separation just because of the full package Tyler Warren brings. There's another layer to this as well, because if you're looking at this from Tanner Engstrand's perspective, they love their tight ends in Detroit, right? A lot of what they can do from a playbook standpoint and how they structure these plays and look to attack defenses is built around what their tight ends are capable of doing in terms of winning and having, X factor type matchups for themselves. Tyler Warren is a walking ace up the sleeve if you're looking at this from Tanner Engstrand's perspective. I believe he's a multi-sport athlete, but when you look at Penn State, they tend to acquire freakish athletes at almost every position possible, and they're doing this consistently, especially with having some of these guys waiting in the wings. Tyler Warren's no exception. You also look at the fact that with him, you're not just getting a tight end. You're getting a top tight end that brings the full ensemble in the run and pass game. You're getting a additional offensive lineman, and from a playbook standpoint, this is the stuff of dreams if you imagine that trick plays won't be a tendency breaker for the New York Jets or a change of pace type call, much like we saw with Ben Johnson. This will actually be a significant portion of the playbook that they use to kind of break down opponents, if you will, especially when we're up in games and different things of that nature. So with Tyler Warren and his background being a former quarterback, right? You get the running ability with the positions we've seen him in the backfield as a fullback, as a halfback, him as a passer. You get him obviously as a tight end that contribute in the passing receiving game. It's the perfect trifecta. You get him the ball, whether it's a wildcat situation or just something creatively that you're drawing up. You feel comfortable with what he will provide as a runner, as a passer, as a blocker. And that, it speaks volumes, right? It's the kind of value pick that you would love to have. So what's the negatives here? What's the drawback with Tyler Warren? The only real concern is, what if he doesn't live up to expectations? What if he, I guess, possibly never has that historic type season like we've seen out of a Brock Bowers? Maybe he falls more in the lines of what you've seen out of somebody like Kyle Pitts, for example, right? Maybe he just consistently gives you 600 to 700 yards and grades out extremely well in the blocking game. I would say, if I'm looking at him from a comp perspective, and again, I haven't dived into Tyler Warren and really looked heavily into him, but from everything that I know, all of the different numbers and stats that I've seen thrown out there, I wouldn't say it's far-fetched to think that he's a Dallas Goedert 2.0 type player, right? And looking at Dallas Goedert, I talked about him being somebody I would look at trading for based on the day 4 trade compensation that was projected. And not only that, it was a future projected for that it seems like Roseman would have been willing to consider. I'd be all over it. You get not only the guy that you feel like he could be walking right out of the gate, but he can accelerate that development to actually make him the 2.0 version while having one of the better 1-2 punches in the tight end room for a team that expects to see a significant bump in 12 personnel package. So I'm 100% on board for this. Even considering who may be on the board, if you don't have somebody like a Mason Graham, I think there's only a few players, right? Shedeur Sanders will obviously be a huge discussion point. Mason Graham is one of the few people that players that I think people consistently consider a blue chip difference maker. Pairing him with Quentin Williams obviously sounds like a fantastic idea. And then somebody like Abdul Carter magically dropping to us. And even though we have JJ, even though we have Will McDonald, who also enjoyed a breakout season, you would love to have that 3-deep rotation of guys that are all first string caliber players. If it's not one of those 3 guys, I don't think there's anybody else that's an obvious selection over Tyler Warren. I think the next obvious conversation is going to be, from a weapon standpoint, Tet versus Tyler. And I think you can make the case that the value you gain from Tyler Warren being on the field would be higher than what you would gain from Tet McMillan. And then the Mimbo conversation, if you want to look at completing the offensive line. But again, Tyler Warren can sub in as that 6th guy to help out whoever you select on in the 2nd or 3rd round. So there's a lot of creativity that you can look at this from when it comes to selecting Tyler Warren. But let me know what you guys think, because I want to say there's not a ton of vetting that you really need to do with Tyler Warren. As far as I know, his background, all that kind of stuff is as pristine as you can ask for. So with him being kind of that ultimate throwback tight end, again, looking at him and kind of viewing this from the angle of, is this the player that you want to embody what this regime should be, play, and look like? I think the answer to that is yes in every situation. So let me know what you guys think. Tyler Warren, how likely do you consider him to be the pick? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.